Attention economic developers. The unspoken secret of our industry is that responding to RFIs is time-consuming and often feels like a waste. You need SiteHunt. Dane has harnessed AI to do the heavy lifting for you. SiteHunt builds detailed building and sites databases and generates instant RFI responses, transforming tedious tasks into winning opportunities. Stop wasting time and start winning more projects. Visit sitehunt.io today. SiteHunt, where AI meets economic development.
Welcome to the Econ Dev Show. We explore the strategies, ideas, and insights that are driving economic development forward into the future. You'll hear new insights from passionate EDs about their successes and struggles. And you'll learn from attraction and retention experts about how to apply actionable strategies inside your EDO. We'll help take your organization, your community, and your career to the next level. Here's your host, Dane Carlson.
Welcome back to the Econ Dev Show. Today, we're here with Darrell Scott and Jason Archer, both with the St. Louis Partnership. Darrell is the Vice President of Business Finance, and Jason is the Vice President of Business Development. Darrell and Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I guess this is for both of you. To sort of start off, can one of you tell us, or both of you, what is the St. Louis Partnership, and explain to our listeners how it is different than the other economic development organizations in St. Louis? Because if anybody knows anything about economic development in St. Louis, is that there's a lot of players.
I'll let Jason go with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dane. Thank you for that question. Appreciate being on with you and your listeners today. So the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership is a combined economic development agency that receives funding and legislative authority from the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, which means we can operate in both of those jurisdictions. There are independent agencies such as the St. Louis Development Corporation, referred to as SLDC, who operate specifically in just the city. And then there are other individual municipal economic development and chamber organizations in St. Louis County. So we would be the one, though, that has the flexibility to go into both areas and work on projects or assist the appropriate local developers, development agencies in those areas. I'll let Darrell explain his footprint. We have a few programs that expand outside of that. So our organization, for example, has a new market tax credit program, and it's a donut around St. Louis. The city of St. Louis has their own new market tax credit allocation. They win their own awards, and we operate one that's around the city and the surrounding counties. We also have a World Trade Center that assists companies that export and trade, and they work throughout the region as well. It's a regional authority for them. And then I'm going to let Darrell talk about his finance authority in our organization.
Sure. The business finance is the lending arm of the partnership. And what we do is we handle the 504 loan request for the city and the county. And actually, we can go anywhere in Missouri and do a 504 loan. A few months ago, we did one right outside of Kansas City, and we go to Illinois, 8 counties that touch Missouri. We actually can go in there to do a 504 loan as well. The other thing that we do is we manage a small business loan program for the city and the county. And that's typically where a business owner, it can be two ways. It can be a bank doing a loan with the business in the city or the county. And they might be at a point where they're only able to do a certain amount, lend a certain amount. For example, if a business owner is buying a building and that bank says, we only can do loan to value, which means that they only lend on 70% of the value of that property. But that business owner might say, hey, I need some additional money for working capital or equipment or to pay my employees. They can come to us and we can piggyback off that remaining equity and provide a small business loan to that business owner. The other option is, for example, a business that has been denied along by traditional means, that means through a credit union or bank. They can come to us and we see whether or not we can assist them with a small loan. And the other thing could be is that we actually, one of the few entities that actually work with startups. So there are several loans that we've done for startup entities as well. Another area that we handle is industrial revenue bonds. And those are bond issuance. We only do deal with the county. The city has their own bond issuance, and that can be tied to manufacturing. um, It can be tied to assisted living, low-income housing, special tax districts, and 501(c)(3)s.
Gotcha. I think that makes sense. That's actually a pretty complete overview of the organization. Um, Darrell, you sound like it, and from reading your background, you were a banker, so you bring banking experience to this. How can you talk to me about the difference between being a commercial banker and working for an economic development organization like this? Do you feel like you make a larger impact? And in that, do you have some success stories maybe that you could share?
Sure, absolutely. 25 plus years of commercial banking experience before coming on board. 3 years ago, I worked with I started off my banking career with a division of Deutsche Bank called Deutsche Financial Services. From there, I went to a large bank, US Bank. Then I went to a startup bank, and coming from a conservative banking background, working with a startup bank was a totally different animal environment to work in. Then I worked with, I actually was in charge of a bank in North City, and then to work for a billion-dollar bank, which I loved. The thing I love about banks is relationships. I've always been about relationships, but unfortunately, that works better with a smaller bank than a larger bank, because a larger bank sometimes relies on algorithms to make decisions instead of actual, you know, getting to know their particular borrowers and what their needs are. And so 3 years ago, I decided, because the banking environment was totally changing, that I wanted to go in a different direction, because I've always been about service. In my entire life, I volunteered at various boards and other capacities. And I saw this position being advertised, and I said, this is something I want to do in this particular time in my career. It allows me to give back more, to develop more relationships. It's more about improving the economic conditions of the entire region. And so I applied for the position, and I was hired on. Now, I will tell you that my banking background, I had experience with SBA 7 loans. I had no experience with 504, and I quickly discovered that that is a totally different animal. And my first week on board, I had 16 meetings, and I'm like, holy doggone. And that was overwhelming. Like, how am I going to get stuff done? But it's such an experienced team that I inherited. So they made the transition so smoothly for me, and I could not done what I've done without the group that I have working with me. It's such a great team that I'm privileged and honored to be a part of. So the things that I really enjoyed, for example, an example is a couple that I've known for a number of years before I came here. They had been producing a product, and they had started out producing the product in their home, and they went to co-ops and other places, but they were not making any money producing their product. We were able to get them into their own building, where they're able to manufacture their own product. They're able to put more money into their business and able to grow their business. So that is one of the things that really is exciting when you go to some place that somebody have struggled so much. For example, they deliver their own product they're in Schnucks, they're in other stores in this area, and he was hand delivering. It was and also making the product as well. It was just so many hours that he was putting in. So now he is still putting in a lot of hours, but he's able to control the cost of everything that goes into his product. So it's more beneficial for him now. Another area is, like I said, we deal with industrial revenue bonds. So one of the most exciting things that happened when there was a bond issuance approved for 183 unit going online in Wilson. Wellston is an area that is in dire need of renovation and improved economic conditions. So the Industrial Development Authority approved a $24 million bond issuance along with another 20-something million dollars that they were able to acquire, the developers. And so to be there when they're breaking ground on something that's going to have such an economic impact on that area to help bring it to the first stage of that area getting back to where it needs to be was extremely exciting.
Amazing. Jason, your career, it spans, it sounds like you've gone from the factory floor to the Senate floor. And now you're doing business development for an economic development organization. How has your experience sort of built up to this point? And, do you have any big wins that, maybe you want to brag about?
Well, the joke in economic development is I'm in economic development, which means I have no marketable skills for any job. So there you go. But I don't have any specific talent as Darrell. I just kind of bounced around as I went. And I say the factory floor. I began my working life career as a 19-year-old high school graduate at the Chrysler Corporation, building minivans, the world when they invented the minivan. So, I don't know. I can go, I start there, but anyway, I became a union official, negotiated language, learned how to do that, went to work for the state of Missouri in economic development, started in workforce, actually wound up becoming the legislative liaison where I'm drafting legislation, working with those teams to create these economic development programs. Wound up having to leave there, working the Senate. So I wound up working for a senator. We did language for that kind of stuff and then bounced back into economic development. So I've been around everywhere. So when you say that from the factory floor to, yes, I've literally been on both those floors. So,
So what does your day-to-day look like at this point?
My day-to-day, or the big thing that I wind up, why they want me to come to work and focus. Sometimes I've got two things I do want to talk about. Eventually you're going to hopefully ask about our BRE, but, we work on and negotiate large incentive packages for large companies. So, Boeing, Pfizer, we've got one going on right now that's going to change the face of the St. Louis industry called Gateway Studios. It's a $130 million investment for traveling stadium artists to design, manufacture, then rehearse their show, then load it up and hit the road. And there's only one other place in the U.S. that does that. So this will sort of become a behind the scenes location for traveling artists around the U.S.
Amazing. Looking at both of you, now for both of you, what do you guys think is the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity facing the St. Louis region, in the next 5 years? Let's just bring it tight. 5 years.
Well, for me, my point of view, I think it's talent. We have to do more, and we're working in an area of attracting more talent. And I would say also is reinventing some of the people who are having a difficult time finding work. It's giving them the opportunity to learn a new skill.
I agree with Darrell. Talent, population, talent attraction, and talent pipeline. Creating those systems of training opportunities for individuals so that they can either be redeployed, redistributed, be in something else different that they choose that they want to go into and have those opportunities.
It's so interesting that everywhere in the country is having the same basic problems, and they're problems that we as economic developers never thought we would have to deal with. Talent, childcare, housing, medical care, all those things, those pieces that we just never thought would be sort of our purview, maybe workforce, but the rest of it, it's just so strange. And we're all having that same issue at exactly the same time. So obviously there's going to be some kind of major national thing we're going to have to do because we have to figure this out. Jason, that brings us back to you. I do want to ask you, you played a role, probably a key role in the Business Retention and Expansion Program. So can you give us an overview of the SCL Partnerships program and share with us some of the notable successes it has achieved?
Yes, I do want to talk about this. Thank you for asking that question.
You're welcome.
Kind of like, this is kind of something that our organization, along with our partners, I want to be really clear when they all start listening to this podcast, it was all of our partners as well. At the beginning of the pandemic, the IEDC, International Economic Development Council, and others, our business retention and expansion is a pretty well-studied area in economic development. How to keep those companies in your community and get them to grow. And our CEO challenged us at the beginning of the pandemic. One of the things that he wanted us was to rethink how we do our BRE. So we did a lot of study with it. We had a large internal group, and we started just looking at what's out there. How do people organize their BREs? We wound up taking ours and partnering with, your first question, who are all these economic development entities around in the community? We all got together, brought them on board, right? So this is pandemic, we're on Zoom, we're meeting, and we're saying, we want to do a formal business retention expansion committee with our partners. So that included government agencies, so SLDC, SLEDP, the workforce offices in the city and the county. We partnered with our utility suppliers. So Ameren and Spire came on board with us. The state of Missouri Economic Development came on board with us. Our regional chamber came on board. We have met every Friday for the last 4 years. We have a standing committee meeting where about 9 of us, get together and we talk about companies we want to meet. And when we set up a meeting, a BRE, we expand it based on the specifics of that company. So we do a little research once they accept a meeting, we get on Zoom. So for example, if it's a small business that Darrell and SBA and finance would be appropriate, they get invited. If it crosses a jurisdiction where one county, I say county, the city's a county and the county's a county. So it's like the appropriate workforce office attends that meeting. So we have an hour meeting with a company that they meet 9 economic developers. So they don't have to get parking spaces. They don't have to get water for us. If their top salesperson is traveling somewhere, they can get on Zoom and meet us all. And then we all can meet them. They talk about what's going on at their company. We introduce ourselves. It's a time where we're not selling anything, but we're just introducing ourselves. We had a win on there. We actually won an award for this project. Pfizer had spun off one of their units here in St. Louis. And so we had a BRE, and we had some of the top CEOs of my organization and of a regional chamber get on and meet their new CEO and welcome them to St. Louis. And we all got on a screen and welcomed him here and said we could do anything we want. It was a spinoff that venture capital purchased. So what's that mean, right? And we just developed that relationship immediately, and we wound up working with them. We got a $60 million investment out of it. They've added jobs. I've had continued meetings with them. They're looking like expanding more facilities and assembly lines there. And so that was a really great success of having this formal weekly meeting with all our partners together. And now we don't trip over each other trying to get into a company. So kind of neat.
Well,
Gotcha. So,
Jason, go a little further than that. What has the BRE won the last 2 years?
Yeah. So that was a silver award with IEDC, and it's public. We can talk about, they have an announcement. We're going to win a bronze for an international award. We partnered with our county port authority. They put some funding in for an direct international flight to Europe. And one of these companies was in Europe. The governor went, our BRE committee arranged those governor meetings, and this company wound up buying 2 in St. Louis and keeping them here and expanding. And so we're going to win the bronze award with IEDC for international with our BRE committee. So,
wow, congratulations. That's phenomenal. I saw that on the list. Yeah, it's not public, it's public, but it's not really promoted yet.
They told us we could talk about it now. So but they haven't done their official announcement. So I don't know,
That's phenomenal. And that's such a huge issue, especially in a region where you have all these different players that everybody's always stepping on other BR&E visits. And it just, the businesses are just.
Question. Your first question was, right. So a lot of you and say, like, how do you and so that is something we address with this. Now, these are one-off visits and one-off companies. We try to do what we call connectors. So it's like developers, site selectors, we'll all get on and we introduce ourselves so that if they have a client they'd like to bring us in. But what you just said connects to your first question was, how do you all not trip around on each other? And this was how we try to do it.
That is award-winning. Just that idea. I had never thought of that. you think about collaboration for all kinds of things, but for that specific piece, that's the one that you trip over all day long, every day.
Yeah. Everybody leaves their egos at the door too.
Right. Right.
I've
Right.
spoken
Because it's
to
all
other groups
helpful.
too. It can work for a large community, it can work for a small community. If you're in a smaller community and you want to bring your workforce person and maybe your local chamber rep, and then, sometimes smaller communities only have a city manager or an economic and community developer. If you bring them all together, then they've all met them. They've met the right players together. And we always tell our people when we get off, there's no wrong door, because we have a standing Friday meeting. So we all touch base on a Zoom on a Friday and say, hey, so-and-so reached out to me, but it belongs to you. And we get them to the right place.
I love it. That is a great idea. That's the winningest idea I've heard on this episode thus far. Let's change the subject a little bit. Darrell, let's talk about that. You mentioned overcoming significant obstacles earlier in your career as one of the few African Americans in the commercial credit field. How did you navigate these challenges, and what advice would you give to young professionals facing similar situations?
Well, my first job out of college was working for household finance. And I was at the point where I was ready to transition to my own office. And I met with a regional president, and he said, Darrell, I've got great news for you. We have 2 offices that I think you'd be excited and do very well overseeing them. And then he proceeded to tell me they were Waterloo, Iowa, and Ottumwa, Iowa. And I said, with all due respect, I just don't see an African American running an office in either one of those rural towns. And he proceeded to tell me that, Darrell, well, you have the unique ability to blend in, and I don't think that would be a problem for you. And so at that point in time, I'm like, I don't want to go down this road. So I started looking into other areas. And I remember interviewing at a bank, and the person in charge I would have been reporting to said, we don't have any African Americans working for us. How do you feel about being a pioneer? And I said, well, I don't look at myself as a pioneer. I look at myself as just another individual. My thought process is that no one's better than me. I'm just as good, but I'm just as good as the next person. And so I soon learned that was a common theme with several places I interviewed, was that, okay, we really don't have any minorities, so we don't know how to go down that road. And my first job, actually, after leaving, I left household finance to work for a manufacturer of medical products, and I was there for a number of years. And that company was sold off to Tyco Healthcare. I had an opportunity to go to Massachusetts, but they weren't going to pay me any more money, so I knew I had to start looking for something else. And I interviewed with Director of Financial Services, and I got the thanks, but we'll keep your resume on file for 6 months, so forth. And I'm like, yeah, sure. 2 weeks later, I get a call, and I go on the interview, and they were honest. They said, we don't have any African Americans working within the company. We'd like for you to come aboard, and we're not hiring you just because you're an African American. You do have to do the skill sets. But so I still was in the back of my mind, okay, hey, am I an affirmative action hire, or do they really think highly of my skill set? So it was every day going to work thinking that, okay, hey, you have to make yourself just as good as the next person there, so they don't think that you're just here because they're trying to meet a quota. And so that was my first foray into dealing with something that I knew was out there. I did very well. As a matter of fact, 2 years later, the parent company Deutsche Bank was selling their division off. I said, I just went through this with Sherwood Medical. And so I accepted a job at U.S. Bank, and the president of Deutsche had me come in. He goes, "You've done very well here. We hate for you to leave. What can we do to get you to stay?" And I said, "Well, the rumor is that the bank is going to sell this division off, and I just don't want to go to. I just did that 2 years earlier." And he said, "Well, what if we increase your severance if that were to happen?" And I said, "You and I both know you're more attractive with a job than without a job." And so he goes, "Okay, well, what if, is there somewhere else, what another department you want to go work in?" I said, "No." I said, I appreciate that you value me, but I think this is the right choice for me." And so I think what people have to do is understand the environment. You have to develop a good work ethic. You have to have sometimes a thick skin, because one of the things I encounter sometimes when I first started dealing with commercial brokers is it was a good old boy network, and there was only certain kinds of deals they would give me send my way. They were usually in a majority African American communities. They weren't sending deals my way that were in Clayton or Creve Coeur or something like that. And so, but I developed relationships, and I realized you can't take anything personally. You just have to develop a good work ethic. You have to put in the work and let things happen as they may. But the thing I would tell somebody is, don't get frustrated. There are going to be losses. You can't take it personal. You just move on to the next deal.
That's excellent. That's good advice. And honestly, that's good advice for everybody. Darrell, beyond your professional career, you serve on various boards and committees. How do these roles complement your work at the partnership? And what synergies do you see between them?
Just, I serve on several boards, and what it's about, communications, developing, like I said, relationships, developing connections that can help you not only in your business, but also in other things in life. It's about connecting people with other people. For example, there are cases where I've had people I work with on some of the boards. I know what their skill sets are, what their occupation is, and I will work to do introductions to them with other people that can benefit them. It's more about, it's not more than what I can get out of it, it's what I can give. I don't join an organization saying what I can get. It's about what I can give that organization and the community.
Sure. And Jason, sort of same question to you.
Big one that I serve on is I serve as currently the chair for the St. Louis County Workforce Investment Board. So the St. Louis County WIB, like every county in the United States has this WIB board. And I think of it as the pillar for residents in our county that have barriers to entry to finding employment. There are a lot of other pillars in the community to help training and workforce, but we are the ones that monitor the federal funds as they come down from the federal to the state to the local level. So, professionally, I think it's important to do that in our community, but as an individual, I was in that system as an auto worker being laid off and stuff. So I've been in it. I know what some of the programs are that get assigned to an individual for assistance when you lose your job. So that's one that it's been quite rewarding for me.
That is excellent. Excellent. Did COVID-19, I guess this is for both of you, did COVID-19, did it have a major impact on the organization? Did it change how you strategize? Did it change your priorities as an organization? In ways that are still impactful today, I guess is my question.
Well, we talked about how we organize and set up our BRE, and I'm kind of one of the voices that have fought to keep it as a video-based program instead of in person. We will meet with companies in person and do tours and things when appropriate, but it's allowed us to do an initial 50-minute meeting with a company with 9 economic development people and whatever staff they want to have wherever their staff is located. That's really changed a lot of that work instead of that kick the can to get everybody together on a meeting when calendars align and it's hard. And this really gets it started. So I think that is one aspect of work that has stuck. And that we've embraced the successful portion of it. So,
And I came aboard when we were transitioning out of COVID. And so all of our boards meet by Zoom or rather electronic medium. And it's funny, we're getting to the point where we're offering the boards an opportunity to do a hybrid. They can either come in person or still do the video. And everyone seems to be wanting to continue to do the video.
It is interesting that, as much as we all, missed seeing each other, we all, during COVID, when everything went to video, we all kind of like the flexibility that it gives us to do all of the thing that way.
I think some late adapters to that technology embraced it too. How to say, well, I think I did say it, late adapters. Let's just call them that.
Yeah.
People that wouldn't accept that technology until it was forced upon them. And then I think once it was, they realized, wow, my 45-minute commute to and back a 30-minute meeting, I can do 2 now. And so, in person is still appropriate a lot of the times, and it's important to do, but it's also a good way to be with someone and flexible till you can stack in more and then move that in person around when necessary.
So true. I agree. So are there any upcoming projects or initiatives at the STL partnership that you guys are excited about that we need to share with our listeners?
I want to share with our BRE, if you have a company business, if you are located in the St. Louis City or county, and you want to meet 9 economic development people in 45 minutes or less, we'll get on it. We don't selling. We don't ask for anything. You don't have to do paperwork. We just get a chance to meet with us. And you could say, I got a problem. I'm trying to stripe. I got a wastewater runoff problem on my parking lot. You know what? We don't have that person on our board, but we'll find them. So it's a great way just to meet us and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. And then, because we're always looking to fill that meeting pipeline, because it can turn into something else. It can turn into more. So,
well, I don't have nothing per se in our department. We're busy updating our applications, our training materials, but we're more excited about what the Fed's going to do, because that's really going to open up the economy, and that's going to spur more development. So that's one thing that we're really excited about. So, okay, is it going to be a quarter point? It's going to be half a point. And so that's what we're geared up for. Say, well, okay, what's the Fed's going to happen? Because we know there's probably going to be another rate reduction sometime later on this year as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, are there any other questions that I should ask you that I haven't asked you?
Well, for me is that I'm really available. I return phone calls usually the same day, same thing with emails, ask questions. So I get calls all the time saying, this is an idea I have. And then if it's something that we can't do, we'll put them with a member of Jason's team, or works through Jason, Colleen Mohio, and she does a phenomenal job with startups, helping them outline their business plan, tell them what they need in order to get ready for a bank loan or anything else. So that's the thing I would say is have them reach out to me, and I can steer them in the right direction.
Absolutely.
That's something, and Darrell, I'm going to talk a little more on what he talked about. We have on staff a small business counselor. So if an individual is wanting to start a small business and they work through Darrell and they're looking for a loan, they have to have a formal business plan. They have to have all these documentations and paperwork. They can't just walk in and get a loan. And so we have a person on staff that's free for counseling for that, to assist those individuals to write that plan, to work on that. Like they don't fill out the application, but they help that person. They coach them to the point where they can ask for the assistance that they need and stuff. And so that's a big thing is important to any community vitality, is to keep those small business opportunities growing.
Absolutely. Because those small businesses become medium-sized businesses and hire a bunch of people and keep growing. So yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, because one of the things that the partnership does have is 4 incubators, and there has been some great success generated out of those incubators.
Wow. I had no idea that you guys did all of this. I'm impressed. This is really good. And I think our listeners will be too.
We have one incubator Darrell talked about. It was near this place called the MET Center. It's the Missouri Education Training, MET Center is what they call it for short. So it's a training center. It was a former electric factory, and it was redone in the 1980s and stuff. But within this whole area, it's in the city of Wellston. There's a Metrolink stop, there's a daycare facility, and there's an incubator that we operate all within walking distance of this 4 corners of this neighborhood. So, there's some neat opportunities out there for individuals if they've got we do just about everything, but give them the idea.
Right.
They've got to have that idea. We don't grow those.
But we can't give them the money.
That's phenomenal. So, Darrell, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
They can reach me at dscott@stlpartnership.com.
All right. Jason?
J. Archer at the same thing.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, it has been wonderful to meet you, wonderful to talk to you. I've learned a lot. I hope our listeners have as well. And I wish you guys the best of luck.
Well, thank you for providing us with the opportunity to talk to you.
Dane, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Econ Dev Show with Dane Carlson. If you're an economic developer who never stops learning, for more expert strategies, fresh insights, and new ideas to take your career, organization, and your community to the next level, visit us on the web at econdevshow.com.